Usually, when we talk about a major sporting event, like a World Cup, we expect all the drama to happen right there on the pitch.
Right, exactly. The traditional stuff.
Yeah, you're watching the players, the ball, the clock ticking down.
Yeah.
It's this very physical, tactile experience it's right in front of you.
Yeah.
But lately, stepping into the world of modern football feels, well, a lot less like a standard sports broadcast and a lot more like you're dropping right into the middle of a high-stakes financial thriller.
Oh, absolutely. It's a completely different landscape now.
Right. And for this deep dive, we're not just looking for muddy footprints on the grass to figure out the story of a tournament. We're actually tracking these bizarre, massive fluctuations in global prediction markets.
Which is wild to think about.
It is, because at a recent World Cup, we saw millions of dollars, these highly specific digital wagers, and some incredibly controversial referee decisions all kind of collide at once. And it showed us exactly how fast public trust in a sport can just completely evaporate.
And that fundamentally changes how we have to view the game. We're entering this era where the rapid evolution of betting technology it's really challenging the structural integrity of football itself.
Yeah.
But before we get into the actual mechanics of how all this invisible machinery operates, I think we really need to establish a firm baseline for today's deep dive.
Yes, let's draw a thick line in the sand right now. Based on all the source material we are unpacking today, there is absolutely no proven evidence of match fixing at this specific World Cup.
Right. None.
There's no confirmed proof of intentional manipulation by players.
Yeah.
And no final judgment from any governing body saying outright corruption took place.
Exactly. I mean, the central theme here isn't a proven crime. What we're really examining is the architecture of suspicion.
The architecture of suspicion. I like that.
Yeah, we're looking at how billions of dollars flowing through these highly specific, instantaneous betting markets have kind of combined with standard subjective referee decisions. And that creates an environment where trust is suddenly incredibly fragile. It's really about perception just as much as reality.
So to get into that, the real inciting incident for all this suspicion centers around one specific player, Folarin Balogun. So it's July 2nd. Balogun is playing against Bosnia and Herzegovina, and he gets a straight red card.
Yeah, a massive moment in that match.
Right, and we all know what that means in football.
Yeah.
A straight red card is an automatic suspension for the next match, which for them was against Belgium. The door is closed. Period.
Right. The expectation across the entire football world at that exact moment was completely uniform. I mean, he's unavailable. The bureaucratic process of a suspension is, it's usually just a formality.
But on that exact same day, July 2nd, this prediction market mysteriously pops up online. And it isn't asking a general question, who's going to win the tournament.
Right, not the usual stuff.
No, it's asking one incredibly specific, honestly bizarre question. It asks, will Folarin Balogun play against Belgium? Which, based on the fundamental rules of the sport, should have been an impossible scenario.
Impossible.
Yeah. And then, just a few days later, FIFA's disciplinary committee comes out with this unexpected announcement. They've reviewed the incident and they removed his suspension. He is totally eligible to play.
And that specific sequence of events is the anomaly that really made the global monitoring community just stop and look closer.
I bet.
Because the question isn't just that his suspension was lifted. I mean, governing bodies can, and they occasionally do, overturn decisions on appeal.
Right, that happens.
Yeah. The real anomaly is the mechanical nature of that prediction market. Because traditional sports books, they set odds based on statistical likelihoods, but a prediction market is essentially a stock market for real-world events. People are literally buying shares in yes or no.
Wait, so it requires someone on the other end who is actually willing to take the bet?
Precisely. It requires liquidity. So the fact that volume was pumping into yes, he will play means someone, somewhere, was willing to risk real capital on what was essentially a bureaucratic impossibility at the time.
Oh, what?
So you have to ask why a market appeared before the disciplinary committee's decision was announced to the public, and why volume flowed into it. Why did this specific situation attract so much financial attention when similar situations with other players didn't?
So is this just like a lucky guess by an overly eager fan? Or is it like someone betting heavily on the twist ending of a movie before the director has even finished editing it? I mean, how do we separate a wild coincidence from actual insider knowledge?
And that right there is the exact tightrope regulators are walking right now. Because a strange coincidence isn't automatically evidence of wrongdoing.
Sure.
These prediction markets are highly reactive. They can spike based on, a rumor on social media or someone connecting dots from public information, or honestly, unexpected bureaucratic shifts just happen.
Right.
The true challenge is defining the exact mathematical line where a coincidence ends and a genuine integrity concern begins.
But identifying that one weird Belogan bet, I mean, that's like finding a needle in a haystack of global data. Who's actually sifting through that hay? Because FIFA can't just have interns Googling this stuff in their spare time.
No, definitely not. They rely on specialized networks. And one of the primary watchdogs is this organization called the Group of Copenhagen.
Okay.
It's a coalition specifically created to monitor and protect the integrity of sports competitions. Their entire core purpose is to ingest these massive amounts of data from global betting markets, identify unusual patterns, and then assess risks connected to match manipulation.
And from our source material, they were heavily active during this World Cup. The data shows they issued 7 separate integrity notices over the course of the tournament. 7 different moments that made the algorithms, flash red.
Yeah, and we really need to define the mechanics of an integrity notice here because the terminology can sound a lot scarier than the reality.
It sounds like an indictment.
Exactly, but it's not. An integrity notice is really just a data packet that serves as an alert. It essentially says, hey, the betting volume or the price movement on this specific event deviates so far from the statistical norm that it deserves further investigation.
Oh, got it.
Yeah, it is absolutely not a conviction. Their job isn't to declare matches guilty. It's just to flag the math that looks anomalous.
Which has to be getting exponentially harder, right? Because the mechanics of sports betting have fundamentally transformed.
Completely.
It used to be, you treated a bet almost like buying a 30-year bond. You put your money down on who wins the match, and you just sit there and wait 90 minutes for it to mature.
Yeah.
But now we're in this era of micro betting.
Yeah, the micro market.
It's like day trading highly volatile cryptocurrency. You can bet on almost any microscopic, isolated part of the match in real time.
And the technological enabler for this is what's truly staggering. I mean, micro betting is only possible because data latency is virtually zero today.
Right.
There are literally data scouts sitting in stadiums, transmitting button presses to odds-making algorithms so fast that the betting lines update before your television broadcast even shows the ball going out of bounds.
That is insane.
It is. You're betting on whether a specific player will get a yellow card in the next 5 minutes or exactly how many corner kicks will happen before halftime.
Wait, if I can bet on a single yellow card, doesn't this new micro-betting environment make manipulation incredibly cheap and easy? I mean, I don't need to orchestrate a massive conspiracy to make a whole team lose. I don't need some smoky back room with the manager and the goalkeeper.
No, you don't.
I theoretically just need one single player to kick a ball out of bounds at a specific minute, or just tug a jersey. That is dirt cheap to bribe.
You've isolated the exact structural flaw that keeps integrity monitors awake at night. The betting world has moved from the final macro result to the individual micro moments. And influencing one small event involves only one action, one decision, just one single moment of human error. It completely isolates the risk for a bad actor. Like you said, you don't need a grand conspiracy. You theoretically just need one player's WhatsApp number.
That's terrifying.
And that is exactly why monitoring these markets has evolved from a simple oversight job into this monumental data science task.
So let's look at how this actually plays out on the pitch, because the sources highlight 2 specific matches from the tournament that perfectly illustrate this frustrating gray area between a suspicious financial anomaly and just, the natural chaotic unpredictability of football.
Right.
The first one is the match between Spain and Cape Verde.
Yeah, so this specific game generated a massive amount of back-channel discussion because before the match even kicked off, a huge influx of money was placed on Spain not winning.
Okay, wait, on them not winning.
Right, and the precision of the language really matters here. The capital wasn't necessarily placed on Cape Verde to win outright. It was placed on the outcome that Spain, who are a massive historical favorite, would simply fail to get the victory.
And then the match ends in a surprising draw, so the bet pays off. And automatically, alarms are ringing for the people who see that huge influx of money as a blazing red flag of insider knowledge.
Exactly. To a data monitor, a sudden spike in liquidity against a heavy favorite looks like a textbook anomaly.
But I have to push back on the rising paranoia here, though. Aren't we at risk of just finding patterns in the noise? I mean, football is beautiful entirely because it's unpredictable.
That's true.
It's full of upsets. Smaller teams like Cape Verde producing unexpected results against giants like Spain. That is the entire magic of the sport. If every surprising result or every time someone makes a bold prediction that pays off is treated as a grand conspiracy, aren't we ruining the experience for ourselves?
It's a really vital counterargument. Betting activity does not always equal inside information. The mechanics of large-scale betting involve some incredibly complex risk management.
Right.
Sometimes a massive bet like that is just, well, incredibly sharp strategy by the syndicate. Sometimes it's a hedge against other positions they hold. Or sometimes it is simply a high net worth entity making a bold prediction, backing an underdog that had already been showing some serious momentum in previous matches.
Yeah, they just had a good feeling about it.
Exactly. A large amount of money landing on one side of the ledger does not automatically mean someone had a script of the final score in their pocket.
But then you have moments where the chaotic flow of the game actually stops and human subjectivity steps in. And the second match that highlights this tension is Spain versus Saudi Arabia.
Yes, the VAR incident.
Right. Ferran Torres scores a goal. The stadium absolutely erupts. But then everything halts. We go to a lengthy VAR review, the video assistant referee, and after 3 agonizing minutes of analyzing the replay frame by frame, the goal is disallowed.
And, a VAR review is a completely normalized part of modern football. The system exists specifically to review these critical, game-changing moments like offsides or fouls leading up to a goal.
Sure.
So the decision to disallow the goal, looked at in a total vacuum, is just part of the sport's modern officiating mechanism.
But we aren't in a vacuum anymore. Imagine you were sitting on your couch watching this. You're watching the referee stand by the monitor, touching his earpiece for 3 minutes. What you don't see is that during that exact 3-minute window, millions of dollars in micro bets are hanging in the balance, or they're actively settling in real time.
Yes.
Because of micro betting, that single referee decision have massive instantaneous financial consequences.
The sheer financial gravity surrounding a human whistle is staggering now. In today's environment, a disallowed goal, a subjective yellow card, a penalty call, every single action is tied to a live financial market. Integrity experts stress that football federations can't just monitor the final 90-minute scores anymore. They really have to understand the immense pressure on these officials who are making highly subjective decisions that literally dictate the movement of millions of dollars across global platforms.
Which sounds like an absolute regulatory nightmare. If every controversial moment on the pitch now carries this invisible financial weight, how are the governing bodies actually trying to regulate this? Because we aren't just talking about a local betting shop down the street with a guy behind a counter.
No, not at all. We are talking about decentralized, borderless digital betting. The rise of global prediction markets adds this layer of complexity that traditional regulators are structurally unequipped to handle.
I can imagine.
Traditional sports betting operates under strict, heavily monitored rules that change depending on what country or even what state you're in. But these new digital prediction markets, they often operate internationally. They utilize cryptocurrency, they cross jurisdictions, and they basically ignore traditional legal boundaries.
And some of these platforms allow users to trade predictions on highly specific micro events while remaining completely anonymous. It's instantaneous capital moving across borders based entirely on whether a referee decides a handball was intentional or accidental.
And so the regulators are left staring at an almost impossible logistical problem. I mean, how do you effectively police a global industry that exists in the digital ether, moving way faster than any traditional legal framework can adapt?
That actually leads us to what I think is the most uncomfortable part of this entire dynamic, which is FIFA's response to all of this. The governing body is caught in a really fascinating contradiction.
They are. FIFA's official public stance following the tournament was unequivocal. They stated very clearly that they found no evidence of match manipulation, and they emphasized that protecting the integrity of football remains a paramount priority.
But that statement sits very uncomfortably alongside the reality that the group of Copenhagen, the independent data monitors, issued 7 separate integrity notices during that exact same tournament. You have the governing body assuring the public that the house is completely clean. But at the exact same time, the independent smoke detectors are going off 7 times in the background, signaling that something requires investigation. That contradiction alone makes fans feel like they aren't getting the full story.
It creates a massive perceptual paradox. And honestly, the situation becomes even more complex when you analyze the corporate architecture of modern sports. Because today, sports organizations, and that includes the major governing bodies, the leagues, and even individual clubs, they frequently partner directly with the very companies connected to betting, data collection, and prediction technology.
It feels a bit like hiring a fox to install the security system in the hen house.
That's a good way to put it.
I mean, even if the fox promises the technology is just there to keep the other foxes out, it's hard not to feel a little uneasy about the arrangement when you see him wiring the cameras.
The tension there is very real, but there actually is a structural argument for why these partnerships exist. The supporters of these financial entanglements, they argue that working directly with the betting and data companies gives sports organizations access to the fire hose of market data.
So they can see it themselves.
Exactly. They argue that to catch anomalies, you really have to be inside the tent viewing the data flows in real time. They claim it actually improves monitoring and transparency because the data providers alert the leagues the second a market spikes.
I understand the logic, I really do. But the critics must view that as a dangerous, inherent conflict of interest.
Oh, they absolutely do. The critics argue that sports organizations lose their moral and regulatory authority when they become financially entangled with industries that profit directly from the sporting events those organizations are supposed to impartially oversee.
Yeah.
When a league's revenue is tied to the success of betting partners, it becomes very difficult to convince the public that the league will aggressively investigate anomalies that might damage the product's reputation.
So bringing all these threads together, the micro betting, the prediction markets, the VAR reviews, the regulatory paradox, what is the core takeaway for you, the listener? I think it really comes down to this overarching theme. The greatest threat to modern football isn't necessarily a smoking gun scandal where someone is caught on camera handing over a briefcase of cash.
No, it's not.
The biggest threat is this creeping fog of uncertainty.
Because trust is the only currency that actually matters in sports. Football, at its absolute core, depends entirely on the public's confidence in the unscripted nature of the competition.
Exactly.
It relies on the fans' belief that the game is fair. Once that fundamental trust begins to evaporate, the lens through which we view the sport warps entirely. A referee missing a foul, a surprising upset by a team like Cape Verde, or a bizarre substitution by a manager, these are no longer just part of the game.
Right.
They're instantly weaponized and viewed through a lens of deep suspicion.
Think about why this matters to you when you sit down to tune into a match this weekend. Your emotional investment, the joy when your team scores, the heartbreak when they concede, the tension of a penalty shootout. It is entirely predicated on the illusion of a level playing field.
Absolutely.
You believe the result is being decided right there on the grass, in real time, by human effort. If a highly controversial decision happens and suddenly a bunch of unanswered questions about anomalous betting patterns pop up on your social media feed alongside it, that foundational belief just cracks. Genuinely independent monitoring, radical transparency, and clear technological regulations. Those are the only tools we have to preserve the authentic experience of being a fan.
And without a real commitment to that transparency, rumors and decentralized accusations will just easily destroy the reputation of the sport. The data really shows that football has entered an era where complex technology, massive amounts of borderless capital, and highly granular prediction markets are permanently fused to the game itself. The financial tail is now large enough to potentially wag the dog.
Which leaves us with a fascinating and honestly slightly provocative thought to mull over. We've unpacked how micro-betting focuses immense, instantaneous financial pressure on subjective human decisions.
Yeah.
Every time a referee blows a whistle or reviews a monitor, millions of dollars shift. So as this prediction technology becomes even more advanced and as human referees face just unbearable scrutiny for every subjective choice they make, will the sport eventually be forced to adopt completely automated AI-driven officiating, just to mathematically eliminate the mere suspicion of human corruption?
It's a profound mechanical question for the future of the sport. Because if an unfeeling machine makes the offside call or determines the severity of a foul based purely on physics sensors, you entirely remove the possibility of an official being compromised by a betting market. You completely sanitize the decision-making process.
But if we do that, if we completely remove human error, human emotion, and human subjectivity from the game, just to protect the integrity of the financial markets? Do we strip away the soul of the beautiful game in the process? It brings us right back to the beginning. We're no longer just looking at a muddy footprint on the pitch. We're looking at a highly complex, interconnected system, just hoping the twist ending hasn't already been written by an algorithm before the final whistle even blows.